and that way I know I can start. When you just write a comment, let me know we're good to go. Okay. Okay, awesome. All right. Well, welcome to Dog Dog Interactions. My name is Jessica Beck. I am a professional dog trainer. I specialize in behavior. And this particular topic is one of my absolute favorites because it's the biggest myth out there. What is another species saying? And we're going to go through some myths and realities. So these myths and realities are things that I come up with all the time. I hear them frequently, whether I'm reading them, see them in comments, or clients, students have brought them up. So let's get started with decoding interactions. So the first thing that we're looking at is understanding the intricate world of dog-dog interactions. Now, it's a mystery to us, but it is not a mystery to dogs. They are fully aware of what the other dog is saying. We are the one who are clueless. So the first myth I'm going to chat about is all dogs naturally get along with each other. The reality is, just like humans, dogs have individual personalities and preferences. And we actually see this in puppies. So there are a lot of different play styles. Some puppies are real wrestlers. Some are like rocket ships and they really like to run and sniper. Some like to just sniff the grass and roll around. There are definitely different personalities in each dog. Here's where we get into our perception. So this is definitely a big one that I see a lot, the dream versus reality. So we've all started this in our dog owning journey. We all have a dream of stress-free walks, playful interactions, and the sociable dog. The reality is that our dog can demonstrate barking, reacting, or even showing aggression towards other dogs. And the thing is, you're not alone in facing these challenges. It's much like you may be with your partner who isn't as gregarious as you might have hoped they were at the party. And sometimes our dog is having a mood. Sometimes they genuinely are uncomfortable. And we can take a step back and realize the reality is my dog has a unique personality. That's the truth. So, when we look at myths further along, if a dog is aggressive, it's always the owner's fault. Now, I know many of you are thinking, no, I would never say that or think that. But the truth is, many people say, well, it's the owner's fault. They did A, B, and C. The thing is, and the reality about that statement, if a dog is aggressive, it's always the owner's fault, is many factors, including genetics, past experiences, and health issues can influence a dog's behavior. Health issues from pain, gastrointestinal issues, itchiness. Think about dental pain, hip pain, knee pain, elbow pain. You know, a real common pain is in the feet from toenails that are too long. And toenails that are too long create a lot of stress on the joint. After time, that can create like a sore back. And sometimes when you have a sore back, you might not feel very tolerant of a younger dog in your face. It doesn't mean you're aggressive. When we talk about genetics, there are dispositions that we can see that behavioral diseases, actually, we can genetically mark a particular breed and even a color in that breed that is prone to aggressive behavior. Now, we use, in science, we use aggression, the term aggression, as a verb, not a trait. So a verb of aggression is forward reactive movements. Now, in aggressive behavior, when there's past experiences, we know that's from negative learned experiences, which is really common sense. If a dog has had a past negative experience, that's going to impact the future experiences. So this brings us into the truth about dog socialization. I'm just going to double check here. We all good? Yeah, great. So the truth about dog socialization, the myth that dogs need to play and interact with every dog. So if you've ever been at the dog park or taken your dog to the barbecue and other people have brought their dogs and you had the thought in your mind, all the dogs need to get along. And if they don't, there's something wrong with those dogs. Well, the reality is it's better that our dog be dog neutral and ignore the dogs. So the dog who grovels, the dog who pesters, the dog who bosses, not ideal. And in fact, what can happen is overexposure can lead to negative experiences. Now, for some of you, that might seem like common sense, but for some of you, it might seem like in order for my dog to get over it, they need to meet more and more and more dogs. Statistically, this doesn't work because the more experiences are the more opportunities for a negative experience. So we want controlled exposure. And controlled exposure is ideally done at a distance where our dogs practice being what's called dog neutral. And if you work with me, you'll hear terms like disengagement. It's none of your business. Optimism is a way of life. Calmness. And calmness isn't necessarily unique to me. In my methodologies, I look at creating disengagement as a life skill. And so this really shows up in how our dogs are interacting with anything in their environment, whether it's a squirrel, a bunny, or a dog. Whether they love that dog, not too sure, or actually are pretty upset about it, what we're seeking is the initial reaction, the initial response, really, to be, how you doing, and being neutral. Think of it a lot like if you're going for a walk in your neighborhood and you have a nice friendly wave to your neighbor and continue walking. We would call that neutral. What would be uncomfortable and bordering inappropriate would be you having to go and hug for too long your every neighbor and every person you passed on the street. You would have to ask them a bazillion questions. That's not being very neutral, but a good, how's it going? And moving on by. That's a really good experience for everyone. Myth, dogs easily forget negative experiences. So you may have thought, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. They'll forget about it. The reality is, one negative experience can have a lasting impact, and that will influence future behaviors and interactions. And it's not up to us to decide if it was negative or not. It is actually up to your dog. And further to that, it is based on a brain chemical response to that event. So as we're going to get a little bit geeky here. So there's a brain hormone, a hormone called cortisol. This is considered a stress hormone. And when a particularly bad event happens, we meaning anybody with a brain, produce cortisol. And in a bad event, we produce a high volume of cortisol. And this creates what's called a flashbulb memory. And that's why our dog is not going to forget it, is it has literally imprinted that experience. So we go back to previous, is overexposure isn't the answer to normalize or desensitize an experience. What we do risk is creating flashbulb memories based on cortisol. All comes down to science. So, the impact of one bad experience. One negative experience can outweigh many positive ones. So, I've touched on this already. The idea with this is that if I have 100 interactions, that's pretty good chance that not all of them are going to be awesome. Just going to double check something here. Great. I'm trying to manage a couple things while doing a live. It's always good to have a team, but right now my team is chewing her bully stick on a bed. She's very busy and not good at the computer. So over 100 experiences, let's say, you can think about the probability of some of those not being awesome are there. So we want to actually minimize the volume of experiences. And an example would be a high traffic dog area. So that could be a beach, a dog park, a pathway at a high volume time where dogs are not managed well. It's uncontrolled. And we can be pretty sure there's going to be some type type of negative experience. And that for the wrong timing, all of that can be quite detrimental to your dog, particularly a young, impressionable puppy. And puppy can mean anywhere up to 2 years old, as we're still referring to that as an adolescent. In this impact of one bad experience, trust can be eroded, requiring time and patience to rebuild. So, this is if you find yourself in a situation where your dog has reacted in a way that you felt was not very appropriate or it concerned you, consider it from their perspective as well, in that something happened to break the trust. Now, it could have been they were playing with a familiar dog, but that the play just got too intense, and your dog, got scared. It can take some time to then rebuild dog-dog relationships. No different if you get hurt by your friend. It might take a while for you to build up another friendship. Dogs are no different. They're a social animal. Next, we have overexposure. So I really want to emphasize overexposure can lead to more negative experiences. So again, statistically, 100 experiences does not guarantee our dog gets over it. In fact, it decreases the chance of our dog getting over it. Dogs avoid pain and discomfort. So here's a really interesting thing. If you find that your dog is avoiding the walk or avoiding areas or showing signs of avoidance, it could be that perhaps in dog-dog interactions, they're a bit too frisky, they're playing too hard, and perhaps your dog is actually experiencing some hip pain, knee pain, joint pain, even dental pain. Very, very common to have jaw dental pain from misplaced teeth. So just like you, I'm sure one or two of you have had in your life aches and pains. And imagine if you don't know why there's an ache and a pain, your behavior can be really shaped by that. Dogs may develop anticipatory anxiety, expecting negative outcomes. So, what that really means is that, for example, your dog sees another dog down the way and can think, ooh, this is probably not going to go well because the past 99 experiences, I felt really overwhelmed. And I'm going to use our Chihuahua here on the slide. So this Chihuahua is only 1 foot off the ground. Well, you can imagine actually in that Chihuahua's life, it may have had a more overwhelming experiences with everything being bigger than they are. And negative encounters can shape future behaviors and reactions. So again, a negative encounter will set the pace for what is the future going to be like. So a myth, another very common myth, is if dogs wag their tails, they're always friendly and approachable. And it is so not true. So I personally have been on many, many paths where there is a dog off leash approaching me and their person is happily waving, he's friendly. And my dog may not be. Or my dog just may not want to have this interaction. Or to be honest, I might not want to have this interaction. And I don't want to negotiate with the dog and the tangling and my dog's on a leash, whatever it is. Or maybe I have a puppy, or maybe I'm working with a client. There's 1,000 different reasons, none of which I need to defend. But the point of saying is, actually, that tail wagging just means a part of their brain is active. So a tail wagging is just one part of the dog's communication. The entire body language, including what's called an interaction chain, should be considered. So we're going to break this down a little bit. A tail wagging softly off a dog's back in a loping way. So we call that a helicopter. Think circles. Okay, that's looking good. Nice soft face, nice open body, loose. We really want to look for like just easiness. Yeah, that's probably a very good chance that this is actually a friendly dog or a friendly encounter. What we're seeing if a dog is wagging their tail straight off their back like a flag, that's just simply saying, I am very alert and I am not sure yet how I feel about this situation. In addition, we compare that very straight up fast wagging tail to perhaps very hard ears and very hard eyes, and maybe even posture that's leaned quite forward. But just because that tail is wagging, it's more like the engine's revving. I'm just not sure what's going to happen yet. That's all that that tail means. Now, when we put that into what's called an interaction chain. So if you remember at the very beginning, I mentioned that there is dogs know the body language. They know how to talk dog. We don't. So here's your what's it called, like a playbook into their what's called interaction chain. So what dog sees or hears another dog, they start their approach. They then do a greeting. You may have seen this nose to nose greeting, and then they do a nose to rear greeting, and then they have an opportunity to engage in a play or disengage. See you later, I'm not interested. And so in this part of having the chain of interaction, what we want to see is that every part of that interaction, that your dog is actually loose and open and soft. As soon as they start getting into that tense, rigid, more explosive, this is where we want to disengage. So the term disengagement is to say we're going to use, for example, an attention noise. That noise has been previously conditioned to something yummy, like a treat. And so our dog is willing to say, oh, me? Yeah, I'm willing to get out of this conversation because I was not sure how this was going to go. And they disengage and entirely leave that conversation. And in that time and space, we have an opportunity to say, okay, maybe you just needed a breather. We needed a little bit of distance to have a moment to think about this, or actually you needed a way out. That's how we can help our dog in the chain of interaction. So if you get caught into the situation where, well, the dog's tail is wagging, but I'm not actually sure if it's a good thing, pull out that attention noise and get your dog out of it, reduce the pressure, and check in and see, is this actually a good interaction? Yeah. So the dog-dog interaction chain, let's dive a little deeper into that. So dogs have a natural interaction chain. It starts when they see or hear. So one common thing of hearing another dog is actually the tags rattling. So when those tags are rattling, guess what happens? Your dog is already processing the event. But it doesn't have to be the tags rattling. It could be anything. It could be the approach, the leaves rustling. It doesn't matter, right? However, a dog's going to see or hear some other dog approaching. So then we go nose to nose, and that nose to nose greeting is a really good indicator for you to see how your dog is responding. Are they open and loose and feeling confident? If they're not, this is a really good indicator for you to get ready to help your dog out of this conversation. Yeah. And it might mean that you are behind them and you're going to give some leash pressure and actually to draw them out, help them out of it. Or it means that you're just moving forward. Movement can be really good in this case. Actually, this is just a hello and a goodbye, and we're continuing on. Yeah. So breaks in this chain. So again, every dog knows this chain, but not all dogs are skilled. And in fact, most dogs aren't very skilled naturally. It's like not all of us are great public speakers. We have to learn how to do it. Or not all of us are good small talkers. We have to practice. We have to grow certain skills for easy communication, right? Well, it's no different than your dog. So when we're seeing a break in the chain, this could look like my dog reacts as soon as they see another dog. Well, that's based on past learned experiences. So something negative happened in the past, and we're going to help them with disengaging. Yeah, so they see that dog. They're not very happy about this situation. They're unsure. They might be responding by barking or pulling or cowering. And we're going to say, actually, you don't need to worry about it. And we remove them. We help them say, you don't need to continue with that. There's a variety of different things, but we'll stay on task here and keep talking about the chain of interactions. So simply to be aware that it's a 5-step process that during your dog's interaction with any dog, and it actually applies to humans, that you're continuing to see this chain in a nice, loose, open way. Recognizing where the chain breaks can help address issues. And so, what we again look for are using tools of disengagement, optimism, and calm. Yeah. My handy assistant here is telling me that there's somebody at the door. Nice job, sweetie. Okay, so myth: if a dog disengages or avoids another dog, it's a sign of fear or submission. Well, no, actually, not at all. The reality is, disengagement is a valuable skill that can prevent negative interactions. So, if my dog is like, I'm cool, I don't need to talk to you, that's awesome. That's a really great skill. What we don't want to see is that our dog is moving into a high stress response. So that's much different. Disengagement looks like us saying hi to our neighbor, how's it going, and walking on by. You can have all kinds of feelings about your neighbor, but you're not having to get involved in it. You're staying neutral. Yeah. In a case where there is genuine fear and a dog is now starting to withdraw, tuck in, basically try and go into itself, again, that's not necessarily disengagement. That's trying to get out of the situation. And we really want to help them out of it. Yeah. So the importance of disengagement, it's vital for dog interactions. It allows dogs to move away from situations they find uncomfortable. Dogs that struggle with disengagement might put themselves in situations they don't actually want to be in, leading to increased stress and potential conflicts. So, this is a bit like going into an argument. You actually didn't want to have this conversation, but you found yourself drawn in and now you can't get out of it. That is a skill. And even you yourself know you haven't mastered it all the time, 100% of the time. And actually, if you had a trusted buddy with you and be like, it's not worth it, don't worry about it. You're right. I'm going to move on. Your dog needs that exact same support. Yeah. A hyperactive dog is a happy dog. All right. I love this one. So, hi, look. Yeah. All right. So, a hyperactive dog is a happy dog. Overstimulation can lead to poor decision making. Calm dogs often make better choices in interactions. So, what this really means is, have you ever been around the dog who is like bouncing and just woohoo? He's got 5 pairs of party pants on, the whole outfit. He is in for a party. Not exactly happy. Oftentimes, people will say, oh, my dog loves you. Oh, my dog loves this, whatever it is. Actually, it's in a hyperactive state. It's like having too many coffees. You're overstimulated and you're not necessarily going to make really good decisions. And it can also overwhelm the receiving dog, which can also say, stop this, right? So if we have a really bouncy dog who is overstimulated and our dog who is actually fairly calm and just trying to mind their own business, maybe they growl or maybe they posture forward to say, chill out. That's not necessarily an inappropriate interaction, right? That is us in that moment. We didn't necessarily help the overstimulated dog disengage. Then the dog who may have growled had to step in there, and we don't actually want dogs to have to do that. That's why we're there to remedy these situations, right? Dogs today are not wild animals. They are domesticated dogs who live in our home. And so there are different mores, there's different methodologies that we can step in and support a dog. So that looks like creating a calm environment, which might mean that if you are at the other end of a leash of your really hyperactive dog, you're going to work a lot on disengagement. Meaning, when you see that other dog and you get really excited, that can be a stress response, and you're responding with a lot of stress. So, actually, we're going to work at a distance until when you see that dog, it doesn't lead to so much hyperactivity. So the role of calmness is huge. The role of calmness looks like probably one of the most optimal conditions we can put our dog in. Just like us, if we're calm, we can take on anything. So overstimulated dogs really struggle to make appropriate choices, leading to potential conflicts. You see this a lot in adolescent dogs, and it's I see it often where someone lets their dog let off steam, and it actually creates, it's like this Tasmanian devil. It just creates a lot of frenetic energy, and it isn't actually helpful to anybody else. If your dog has that blast, they really need to. Good to take it out where there aren't other dogs. Yeah. Just in a dog dog situation. Dogs that are calm by default are better equipped to handle exciting or worrying situations. So, if you're thinking about taking your dog to a public space, whether that's a festival or a dog event of some sort where there'll be a lot of dogs, you have to consider, is my dog actually ready? Do they have the skills for this? And for most of us, we don't really have a dog who can handle either the whole event itself or the duration of the event that we would be there. So, for example, probably 10 to 20 minutes is the maximum a dog can really process that event. Other than that, they become quickly overwhelmed or overstimulated themselves. So there's a myth that dogs that are wary of new situations or objects are just naturally timid. Not so. The reality is, optimism can be nurtured and developed, so helping dogs approach novelty with confidence. So, let's say, for example, your dog gets a little bit worried about the fire hydrant. And it could look like one day you're walking along and they're barking at the fire hydrant, or a bag that's floating in the sky, or someone walking in an odd way or wearing an odd hat. It doesn't necessarily mean that your dog is now timid. What's can be happening is that one, they don't have the optimism to handle these new things in life, and that is absolutely something that can be nurtured and supported. Yeah. So we don't have to write off a dog as, oh, he's just shy and timid. No, just like us, we can learn to go into life with optimism, right? Like, today is going to work out. Monday is an awesome day. Like, we have to work through that. Yeah. All right. So optimism in dogs helps with dogs to be able to view new or even ambiguous situations without concern. So whether it's a camel to an airplane to a fire hydrant, they're like, huh, never seen that before. Cool. Versus a dog who is apprehensive, we don't just write them off, we can help them build optimism. Um, Optimism can be achieved through games and positive experiences at home. So, one of the things we can do with our dogs at home to build optimism is, for example, create a little scavenger hunt with objects that are new, or somehow maybe they make sounds. There's something different about an object, and we're going to have our dogs interact with that object. So, let's say a cardboard box with crinkly paper in it, or you got some plastic that makes some sound. You're going to scatter some food on there, and your dog's going to walk on something that is different. So you're helping them build skills in a comfortable environment that, oh, I made these sound and everything worked out just fine. And that's how we can play games to help our dog um, build that skill of optimism. So, dogs should be exposed to every situation to make them well rounded. That is definitely a big myth. The reality is, it's essential to recognize and avoid situations that a dog might not be prepared for or might find stressful. So, what that looks like is number one, we have a big myth around socialization. Socialization, there's been this myth for over a decade now that we have to go through a checklist and expose our dog to all of these different things, and it's just simply not true. So again, if we go back to the beginning of this presentation, we looked at, if I have 100 experiences, it increases my chances that some of those experiences are not going to be awesome. And I really want to guard my dog's optimism. So I want to make as many controlled environmental decisions that I can. So that would be, for example, I might not take an adolescent into a downtown environment or to the pet store or to environments that they're not exactly equipped for. I want to grow the skill first and then put them in the situation. So what we would call that is preparing for the situation as opposed to swim or sink. And if you've ever had that happen to you, I can't swim and you're thrown in, it's not the best memory. And now that you know about the cortisol and the flashbulb memory, it isn't awesome. And it isn't a great way to help nurture your dog in a well-rounded way. So what we can do is instead recognize and avoid situations that might not be your dog prepared for. So they're not prepared for the baseball game that goes for 2 hours, or they might not be prepared to walk downtown with the buses and everything going on quite yet. We can take our time with that. Or an example would be with my puppy. I live in a small town, and so we don't really have like a downtown per se, but it's busy enough. And at some point, when she was about 6 months old, I was parked in the parking lot, and I took her out of the crate. She travels in the crate in my van, and she just hung out in the van in the parking lot. And so this was like safety measures, so nothing could hurt her. But she was able to, look around, take in all the sounds. And then the next day or next, adventure, I took her out into the parking lot, and she's on a nice loose leash and she's just sniffing around. 10 minutes goes by, pop her back into the van. And then maybe another week or weeks later, we travel down a little bit more and a little bit more. And now at about a year and a half old, I would take her downtown for 10 minutes just as a little adventure, right? And that would be it. And I would know then she's having a good experience because I'm controlling it as much as I can. And I know that I'm preparing her for that situation. Okay, so we're just about moving through to the final slides here about being your dog's advocate. So I mentioned earlier about protecting your dog's optimism. It looks like I'm losing light. Sorry, everyone. I'm not prepared for evening coming so quick at 7:30, and I'm still used to our long summer nights. So being your dog's advocate looks like it's essential to recognize situations that your dog might not enjoy. Boosting their optimism, teaching disengagement, and valuing calmness sets them up for success. And remember, your dog doesn't need to be friends with every other dog to be happy and fulfilled in their life. Very similar to you, you don't need to be friends with everyone. You simply need to be neutral, right? You can't go around punching people, but you can have a friendly wave. How you doing? And you move on. And that's awesome. And of the hundreds and hundreds of people you meet in your life, there's a few that you have good connections with. It's the same for your dog. Absolutely. So all dogs are the same. This is the myth that all dogs are the same and should be treated identically. We fall into this trap when it was, well, my old dog loved A, B, and C. Every dog is unique. That's the reality. And understanding individual needs and behavior is crucial for a harmonious relationship. I often use this. I have two stepchildren, one's 17 and 13, and it, neither of them play the tuba. They're athletes. They play sports. I don't know. And if it has a ball, they play it. And if I was critical of them and said, "But why don't you play the tuba?" Like, it is just so disappointed. You don't play the tuba. You're not in band. It's just not very honoring of who they are, right? And so your dog has unique talents and interests and skills, and it's really your job as being a part of their life to consider, what do you love? And if you don't love going to big social parties, that's okay. It's similar. You don't have to play the tuba. You need to find what makes that dog happy and joyful and do more of that. Yeah. So, final reflections is understanding dog dog interactions requires empathy. So, taking the time and seeing it from their perspective. And literally, it may be a perspective of putting your belly on the ground and realizing this is what it's like 1 foot or 2 feet off the ground. It can be actually quite scary and intimidating. Understanding and knowledge and patience, really, like, If you want your dog somewhere and they're not there, take a deep breath and realize you too are a work in progress. And sometimes it's 1% every day. And it can be hard to watch paint dry. But if you're progressing just 1% every day, you are getting there. Yeah. Very quickly, we look at big picture. And if we're not in big picture, we've failed. We'll never get there. But that's just not true. Every dog, what is true is every dog is unique and their experiences shape their behavior. So it doesn't matter what your dog in the past did. It doesn't matter what your neighbors, it doesn't matter. You just get to look at your awesome, unique dog and understand that their experiences have shaped their behavior, which does predict the future, but it doesn't mean it's in stone. Yeah, everything is changeable. The brain is changeable. The brain makes the personality. Yeah, that's why I have confidence to say that. Any dog, no matter the breed, age, or history, can have a transformation. No dog is lost, ever. As dog owners, our role is to ensure our dogs are understood, respected, and given the best environment to thrive. So this does also mean an honest look at is this actually what my dog wants or is it what I want? So if I'm a marathon runner and I've got a Chihuahua, we're not a good match, right? And so my dog might actually not enjoy 10-kilometer runs. It's not healthy or safe. So I have to assess, who is this benefiting? And absolutely, our dog gets to say what's in it for me. There has to be mutual benefit. Absolutely. All right. I do have a book. If you can see this slide, I have a book coming out next month already called Unleashing Kindred Bonds, and it's about training and transforming rescue dogs. As I mentioned earlier, there is no dog that cannot be transformed. And the reason why we know this through science is that the brain is changeable. And so if the brain is changeable and brain tissue and brain wiring is all changeable and it can heal, we can heal personality and we can work together to see relationships flourish. And that's what this book is all about. If you're interested in what I do and the work and my methodology, which is games-based dog training, you can go to my website, which is jessicabeck.ca. If you want to check out rescue resources, I've got a bunch of free resources, lots of extra learning. You can go to puppy school, all for free. Go to jessicabeck.ca/rescue, and you'll see some ebooks and lots of stuff. So thank you so much. Thank you, Coastal, for putting this together. We're doing this every month. There is 2 things happening with Coastal and me, particularly the first of the month, the first Monday of every month, we do a adoptee welcome party. So these are people who are new adoptees with Coastal within the month, and we get a live Q&A. And then we have the 15th of every month. We're doing our evening chats, which are supposed to be half an hour. I am 10 minutes over. I apologize if you had your dinner waiting. Next time I will stay to 30 minutes, and I look forward to seeing you then. All right, everyone, have a wonderful night.